My mind rebels at stagnation. Give me problems. Give me work. Give me the most abstruse cryptogram or the most intricate analysis, and I am in my own proper atmosphere. But I abhor the dull routine of existence. I crave for mental exaltation. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
You're listening to the Proper Atmosphere podcast, powered by Soul Performance Academy and hosted by Dan Mickle. The Proper Atmosphere is a weekly podcast focused on answering your questions about mental performance, coaching, and lifelong learning. We thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of The Proper Atmosphere. I'm the host, Dan Mickle, and this week, our question comes from Sara, who is a sophomore in college from Springfield, Illinois, and she's a track and field athlete who writes, "Hey, Coach Dan, I'm reaching out to you because I've encountered some mental hurdles that are affecting my performance on the track. Lately, I've been struggling with maintaining focus during competitions. It feels like my mind wanders and I lose sight of my goals, especially in high-pressure situations like races. It's been taking a toll on my confidence and consistency, and I'm worried it might hinder my progress in the upcoming season. I would greatly appreciate your expertise in helping me look at my performance plan to enhance my focus, confidence, and overall mindset. It would mean the world to me as I strive to excel in my athletic endeavors. Looking forward to hearing this episode. Best regards, Sara." All right, Sara, we got a lot to go over here in this episode because I think one of the problems that we're going to look at is everyone's going to jump and think visualization is probably where we should go. And I don't disagree with that. But I think what we need to do is also look at kind of like a multi-pronged approach to all this. I think there might be a few things, and obviously if we were one-on-one in a private setting, I would drill down a little bit deeper, but I think we can hit some broad strokes that'll help you and others like you that might be listening to this episode. First off, lack of focus at competition is normal. It happens. We have a lot going on. There's time management, stress management, just trying to make sure that physically you're ready to go takes a lot of energy. So there's a lot going on. So it's not uncommon to have that lack of focus. The key is how do we then turn it on when we need to and refocus it? And there's a lot of factors going on here, right? There's the fear of the competition and just the butterflies that you might have, the uncertainty of the outcomes. And one of the things that most people don't hit on that can cause a big issue is just time blindness. A lot of times in competition, we end up forgetting about the time constraints, the timing of preparation and right before the competition and even right after, it kind of all blurs. And I'm not talking like in a flow state. I'm just talking about we get anxious or nervous and then we forget that we don't have enough time to do our warm-ups or do our mental prep. So that's probably one thing that we're going to look at here. And the last thing is, are you actually going backwards? And what I mean by that is a lot of times in training, we train so much that we have a few missteps in the competition. We think we're going backwards, but it's one of those where we're taking a step backwards to maybe take 2 steps forwards, where sometimes growth is ugly and complicated. And when we think that we might be digressing in skill, it's just actually a pause and then we come back better and strong. So we want to make sure that when we have these feelings that we're going backwards, that we're not actually going backwards, that maybe it's just this weird perception that we have. So that's a bunch of stuff, right? So how do we actually get into this and fix on some of these? And the first thing I would suggest is we need to look at what your pre-competition routine is. And if you don't have one, we need to kind of look and develop one. And again, one of the fallacies or the errors that a lot of athletes come across with pre-routine is the pre-routine is right before you run your race in your case. And this could be before a baseball player goes up and bats or a volleyball player takes the court. We often think of our pre-competition routine as being those minutes leading right up to, but pre-competition routine can start the night before, early in the morning. There's a lot that can go on in a competition day that we don't think about. For the high school and the college athletes, you could have a whole day of classes or other things going on before you even get to your competition. And we have to take that into effect. We have to have a routine for what's my competition going to be like if I have a big test the day before. And I don't think too many of us look at that aspect of our training and what goes on prior to the competition and how it's going to affect us in the competition. So that's my first step, is let's take a step back and look at the big picture and kind of chunk it up and say, okay, what's happening the 24 hours before my competition that may affect me in my competition, whether it's my sleeping pattern or my nutrition, or maybe it's just my training. How am I training before that? All of that can actually lead up to mental breakdowns during the competition. Because if we're not reflecting on what we're doing and with the training that's leading up to it, we may think that we're not prepared. And then that shoots our confidence out the window, that I haven't prepared enough. I'm not ready for that. I'm not feeling right. So let's take that big step back and look at it. And one of the things, and I know if you've listened to a lot of my other episodes, I'm going to bring it up, but a huge part of that is journaling. And journaling is great for prep and for reflection. And one of my biggest sayings is we can't have growth without reflection. We can't get better at what we're doing if we don't take the time to stop and look at how we've done it and what our results were and what we need to change. So Sarah, in your case, I would look at, okay, let's start journaling. And I really need to focus on those, like I said, 24 hours before competition. What am I doing mentally? What's my stress level like? What's causing me stress? Am I going to school? Am I working? What's my nutrition like? Am I eating correctly and what I need to fuel up for this big competition? Or am I just eating the same thing over and over again? So step one is let's journal and let's start writing that down and really get into what your week and day and hours look like up to that competition. Next, we're going to go into the imagery space. And I'm sure that you've probably done some or little. And the key is we want to look at two different ways of using imagery in this situation. The first one is probably just the common way that you want to look at it, which is I'm going to run this race mentally. I'm going to go through everything from getting set in the blocks to that first step to running and jumping the hurdles the whole way through the finish. And obviously it would be a lot more in-depth and detailed than that. And we could certainly dive deeper into that if we ever needed to. But I want you to also think about, can we use imagery and visualization more as a coaching tool in this instance? Looking at the length of your stride and how you're taking off for the hurdles and how you're getting off the blocks. Instead of just saying, hey, I want to mentally run through this race so that I'm comfortable that when it's race time, I felt like I've already run it, right? That's what a lot of people are going to say. Hey, let's use imagery so that when we're in the competition, it feels like we've been here before because we've run through it so many times. And that's a great concept. And that is something I do suggest for you, Sarah. The other thing, though, is looking at it and breaking down and using it almost like a camcorder or a video recorder, or using your phone to video every step, every aspect of your race. Mentally do the same thing. Mentally go through it and really focus on getting out of the blocks. Or if you're struggling with the actual timing of the hurdling, looking at your strides and how you're jumping in that. But we can use imagery almost like video review. And the good part about that is our mind will tend to make some of the same mistakes that we will actually do when we're running. So maybe we can catch it in that moment. If we're really focused on out of the blocks, you can say, oh, wait, when I'm visualizing, I'm noticing that my hand placement isn't correct coming out of the blocks. Maybe that's part of the problem, and now you can fix it. As opposed to just rewatching the video, the true video after you're done, we can mentally rehearse it, see what we can pick out, and we can really zoom in and micro focus on some of those areas. So we would add that aspect to our visualization training. So again, if you're running through visualization to do the whole race and just feel comfortable running the race and getting your game plan, that's great. But now let's add in the component where we're taking it down to a much, much, much smaller level and focusing on technique and what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. and using it more as a video replay, I think would be great. Another one, and this comes down to if you feel like this is a nerves thing, maybe it's not a technique, it's just you're struggling with the butterflies or the pressure of the race, is I love to do what I call my happy place relaxation. You know, we think of a place that's a great place. It could be the beach, it could be the ski slopes, it could be grandma's house. And we really work on creating a visualization of that place. So let's say it's grandma's house. You love grandma's house. It's warm, it's cozy, it smells like cookies, the sun shines in, there's your favorite chair that you sit in when you're visiting grandma. So what we do is we do a visualization and relaxation plan where you visualize that in your mind, like you're there, and you get it to the point where your mind really does think that you're there. And, you know, that goes through going through all the senses: smell, touch, taste, hearing, everything. You know, and again, go back to previous episodes with visualization if we want to go a little bit deeper in that. But the key is to keep practicing this happy place over and over again, 2 times a day, 30 minutes a day, because you want to get every ounce of sensory that you can. What is every smell? What is every taste? What's every feeling that it's like to be at grandma's house? And the great part about that is that will relax you. And the mind and the brain wanting to be as efficient as it is, as soon as it starts to feel like that's where you're going, it's going to physiologically start to change your body, change the chemical makeup and relax your muscles and, add more oxygen to your blood, and all that stuff starts to happen instantly because the brain's like, hey, we're going to do this relaxation. Let's just start it and be really efficient about it. So what happens is, when it's race day and it's right before race, you can just begin the process and say, you know what, I'm going to think about grandma's house. I'm going to think about my happy place. And as soon as you begin to think about it, the mind will take over and start to do the relaxation. So you don't have to sit there for 30 minutes and go through the whole visualization. The minute you start it, it's going to help you. But you have to practice it over and over again before that so that when you need it, it's there. So work on that aspect of visualization as well, going to your happy place to calm that. Again, there could be a lot of reasons for the space that you're in. So I want to give you a bunch of just little ways that you can fix it and see how, we can work on that. So let's kind of wrap this all up and put it all in a nutshell and see how we can help you with this confidence that you're struggling with and that consistency, right? So too many times we go into these things unprepared, and we need to get to the area where it's comfortable, and that comes with being familiar with the situation. And we also need to have that reflection so we have that full growth. So my plan for you, Sarah, would be let's begin journaling right away and really focus on what you're doing the 24 hours up to the point where you're getting into the blocks and running. And then, of course, after the run, you can reflect in your journal on that. But we really want to break it down and look at, is there anything that's distracting us or causing us more stress before we run? Do we run on Thursdays better than we run on Tuesdays because we still have the hangover from the weekend and the fun and the unfocused weekend that we had? Or do we have a hard time running on Thursdays because we always have a test in trigonometry on Wednesdays? Okay. And then that's how we can combat that. Well, how, and that's a whole nother subject. Then how do we move things around in our schedule? But I think part of it is finding that routine and getting into it. And that starts with journaling. So let's just get in that pre-race routine every day, whether you're running on Tuesdays, Thursdays, morning, nights, evenings, rain, sun, snow. We want to have the same routine to get you comfortable and relaxed and confident. And then lastly is, regardless of the outcome, take the time with the emotions to journal, because we want to have those emotions that are attached in the moment when we're journaling, because that's a big part of it. If we wait hours or a day or two to journal what just happened, we lose those emotions and feelings in the moment, and those could affect our performance. So we want to know what those emotions and those feelings are. All right. So that's a really generic in a nutshell that can help you, Sarah, and I hope it helps others out there is, we have to build a program, just like a strength and conditioning program, around your mental performance. And in your specific case, where you're feeling that your confidence and your consistency, is your consistency really lacking, or do you just feel that way? And that comes with that journaling and the prep in the journal and going through all of that. And then going through the imagery both as a replay and as a technique building skill, I think would help you a lot. All right, Sarah, if you have any other questions, shoot me an email and we can certainly follow up off air about it. Would love to help you out and continue you on your path, hopefully, of some greatness in track and field. And again, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen. Obviously, this was Sarah's question, but this can often relate to a lot of athletes at a lot of different levels out there. So hopefully you have taken something away from this episode, and I look forward to talking and chatting with everyone next week for our next episode. And again, you can always reach me directly at Real Dan Mickle across all social media, and you can reach the podcast directly via email, podcast@properatmosphere.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Proper Atmosphere Podcast, powered by Soul Performance Academy and hosted by Dan Mickle. These podcasts would not be possible without your comments and questions, so feel free to send them directly to us via email at podcast@properatmosphere.com. Or you can reach us across all social media at 717-SOUL, or contact Dan Mickle directly across social media at Real Dan Mickle. Thank you, and we look forward to bringing you more great episodes.